Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Viking Death Squad and a really amazing distinctor on this tabletop role-playing game. And that distinctor is that it can this is a tabletop role-playing game that you can win and that you can lose, which is really different. So let me give you a quick introduction to Viking Death Squad. So Viking Death Squad is created by Runehammer Games. They made Index Card RPG. The art is done by Brandish Gilhelm. It has no byline, so it's simply by Runehammer Games, and it's a freestanding tabletop role-playing game. It's brand new. It doesn't connect to anything else. It's a standalone tabletop role-playing game, which I absolutely love. Good ones are incredibly rare nowadays, and this thing is incredible. So first of all, Viking Death Squad is really spectacular. I can't say enough about it. It has a much better, much simpler, much faster, much more intuitive rules system than Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. It has better art than Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. But it's still not a better game than Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition because it lacks Dungeons & Dragons deep history, which is Dungeons & Dragons' greatest. It lacks Dungeons & Dragons history, and it lacks its resources to distribute the game and make it incredibly ubiquitous and easy to get players for. Viking Death Squad is not going to be a game that is easy to get players for. However, when you get your table together, you're going to have an incredibly good time. So Viking Death Squad is Warhammer 40k. This is my description of it. It's Warhammer 40k if it all happened on Earth, and everything in space that happens in Warhammer 40k happened in Earth's orbit, okay? But it really is. It's just a better, cooler, faster, more beautiful version of Warhammer 40k with a very American feel. It's like if you pulled the Britishness out of Warhammer and just made it American cool. That's what I think Viking does. Now, who do you play in Viking Death Squad? So first of all, Viking Death Squad is a heavy metal game, and that is quite literal. The entire game is based on the song War Pigs by Black Sabbath, and the whole game, you actually literally fight the War Pigs. You fight the infinitum, these people who make war for war's sake, right? And basically, when you play, and basically the War Pigs are these, like, it's hard to say what the infinitum is. They're really, like, deep, powerful beings who are trying to get rid of all of humanity on Earth. But humanity still has these enclaves and these safe zones, or like refuges is the best way to say it. And so you play a human who's very good with tech and gear, or you play a Viking, right? Called an immortal. And the immortals are Vikings, literal Earth Vikings, who have been put into cryostasis and created into super soldiers. So think of Captain America mixed with a Viking, right? And they are created by the infinitum, the War Pigs, and you have to fight the War Pigs, right? And you, as a Viking or as a human, an immortal Viking or as a human, fight against the infinitum, right? It's a really spectacular game. And so basically, but one thing I thought was just absolutely brilliant about it is it can be won or lost. So one of the lines in War Pigs by Black Sabbath is, once 10,000, now only 10, right? And this game takes the lyrics very serious. This is quite literally a heavy metal game, right? Like when you're playing, it's like, dun, 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 dun. You know, they everything in the game is just like to get that guitar riff vibe. Like, everything here is cool, everything here is metal, everything here is awesome, and boy does it deliver. It is like just stones to the wall, flat out acceleration of story and combat, and like it's amazing. I can't say enough about it, right? So but it has this one really super unique element. So basically, one of the things that's not super clear is, like, if you can play a human and you can play an immortal Viking, why would you ever play a human, right? And so it was the first question that arose to me. I'm like, humans aren't really equal to these immortal Vikings. Why wouldn't every player simply play an immortal Viking, right? Well, there's a good reason for that. This game says that essentially you will play your game of Viking Death Squad, and basically whenever a player character dies, right? And this isn't a funnel game. Your players are quite sticky, right? Death is there, but it's really no more deadly than Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, in my opinion. And so basically, when your player character dies, you go to get another player character, right? Well, in your campaign, in your Viking Death Squad campaign, you only get 10 immortals. And when the last 10th immortal is chosen as a player character and dies, your campaign ends if you have not defeated the War Pigs, right? The Infinitum. If you have defeated the Infinitum, when you defeat the Infinitum, your campaign ends. Period. End of sentence, right? And if you use your last 10th immortal Viking, and you have not defeated the War Pigs, you have not defeated the Infinitum, you lose your entire player character group, right? You lose your campaign. I absolutely love this, right? I think Dungeons & Dragons desperately needs this. It desperately needs a win-lose state, right? And one of the reasons why is, and we already know this, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has already published these numbers. The vast majority, 60-70% of all Dungeons & Dragons games never finish. They just peter out, okay? They peter out for lack of interest. They peter out because somebody won the lottery. They peter out because somebody got a job and moved. They peter out because the group can't schedule together anymore. It's bad, right? So less than 25% of all Dungeons & Dragons games ever finish, right? And one of the things is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition really suffers from this horrible American show problem where you're like, when does this show end? And they're like, oh, well, it ends when nobody wants to see it. A perfect example of this was Good Girls. I watched Good Girls. Good Girls is a fantastic show about women who were into money laundering, right? It's a brilliant show. It got canceled after the 4th season, and the reason why was the writers were not in a position where they could just write a good ending to the story. In American television, as long as there's an audience, you will continue telling the show, even if you don't have any more story to tell. And that was very much the case. There should have been a hard, good ending in season 3 for Good Girls. There was not the writers weren't saying anything of import or interest in season 4. And you can go look at lots of commentators who are like, well, why did season 4 even exist? And so I would really highly suggest, I highly suggest buying Viking Death Squad. So what'll happen is you can't actually get the physical book right now. You have to go over to Modifius, and you can it will cost you $76 if you are an American, right? It's going to be $49 for the book, $26 to ship it. So it's $76, but you will get the PDF immediately. And as outrageously expensive as $76 is for a single standalone tabletop role-playing game that is literally less than 140 pages, it is worth every dime. If I had paid $400 for this book, I would be thrilled, because that's what I think it's worth. I actually think if you paid $400, you'd be paying its actual value. This game is amazingly good. So get Viking Death Squad. And then the other thing is, I think we, as Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition players, should start to call for an end game state, a way to win and lose Dungeons & Dragons as a player character group. I think this is a brilliant idea that has come forward through Viking Death Squad. I have been super hyped for Viking Death Squad for a year and a half, and it has delivered everything I wanted. And honestly, the reality is, when it comes to art, when it comes to rules, Viking Death Squad is just light years ahead of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And that's okay, because Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, you can't copyright rules, right? So Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition can pick up any of these ideas that they want rub a little dirt on them and it'll look different enough. And I really think that this is very much needed in Dungeons and Dragons. We need to start moving dungeon masters and dungeon players to understanding that they need to get their campaigns to an end within 6 to 12 months of their game starting. I'm very convinced of that, and I'm just thrilled that Viking Death Squad has done it. Has actually said, hey, you're on a clock, right? You save the world or you die trying, and I love that. And I think every Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition game should pick this idea up and should move to this idea immediately. Oh, that's my opinion. What do you think? First of all, have you checked out Viking Death Squad? What do you think? Second, do you think Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition should have an end game state? I really think this would help the vast majority of dungeon masters, the vast majority of dungeon players, and would make sure that a lot more of our campaigns are ending on a good note. But I'd love to hear your thought. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.